Hello, everybody, and welcome back. It is Security Happy Hour. I am Cyber Warrior. I have with me today the hosts of Hacker Valley, Chris Cochran and Ronald Eddings. Now, it is awesome having them on here today. I'm going to let them tell their story. We're going to get into a lot of what their podcast is about. But to be completely honest, I met Chris at, I believe it was Sans CTI is where I met you when you did your talk
Probably, yeah.
about all that. So it's going to be awesome to have these gentlemen talk and tell their stories and give everybody else a chance to really express themselves and how to get started in this field. But before we get started, because Ronald was so nice to email me back every episode, brother. Cheers to both of you. It is happy hour. I'm glad you
Cheers.
guys can join
Cheers.
me. And why don't we get started with, you know what? Let's get started with Ronald today and see, where you came from and how you got so well the Hacker Valley, and if you're doing anything else right now.
Yeah, and for anyone that's tuning in, you'll see all of my documentation and all of my LinkedIn and social media presence. It says Ronald, but feel free to call me Ron. Ronald's also fine if that's your preference. But yeah, so I'm a son of cybersecurity. I've always been in the game, and I was very fortunate to where I kind of ran across other people in the industry. So when I was around 16 years old, I was working at a public access channel. And at this public access channel, we would record nursing homes, we would record high school basketball games, but we would also allow people to come in on Sundays to record whatever it is that they wanted to record as long as they had a reservation. And I was blessed because right when I was 16 or going on 17, I was interested in taking my CCNA. And a gentleman walks in and he notices me. He's like, "Hey, you're reading a book on computer networking. That's very strange for someone that's 16 or 17." And it happens to be one of my current mentors still to this day, Marcus Carey. He walks in with this gentleman named Joe McRae. He walks in with Johnny Long. These are OG hackers. And they all come into the studio because they want to do a bit about cybersecurity. And at that point, I always been into like breaking things down, understanding the bits and bytes. But they really took me under their wing, and they're like, if you want to be a true hacker, these are the things that you have to do. You don't have to go to school. At that time, you didn't. Maybe now you do. I wouldn't recommend the path that I took all these years ago to someone that's just getting started today, unless they were really going to kind of follow it to a T. But my mentors, they gave me this path. They told me if I doubled down on my CCNA, it would make things easier. They told me if I got my CEH, it would make things easier. And they also told me if I got my Security Plus, it would pretty much guarantee me a spot in the industry. And when I was fast forward, I did that for about 2 years. I met up with Marcus Carey at some gaming shop every weekend, and I didn't have a lot of money, so I would have to ask my mom, "Hey, can you lend me a little bit of money so I can go to this gaming shop to meet up with Marcus Carey?" And we worked on a project that was like a nod to Metasploit, but it was called Metaspons. And after I turned 18, I started going to a community college. There's a lot of cybersecurity practitioners that went to this community college. It's called Anne Arundel Community College. It's in Annapolis. Well, it's in Arnold, Maryland, technically. And this community college is where I met a gentleman named Chad Price, also a prominent figure in cybersecurity. And he worked at Booz Allen Hamilton. He told me, "Hey, you've been asking all these questions during the courses and during the classes. I'm an associate at Booz Allen Hamilton. If you want a job, I know that you don't have any experience, but you got all the certifications that you needed, like my mentors told me to get. I can get you this job if you want it." And then that's all she wrote. I've been in cybersecurity as a professional, fortunately, God willing, since I was 19, and just kind of working towards my goal of just getting better every day ever since.
That's awesome. You did so you had a different upbringing definitely than I did. I got started in the IT side of things and didn't hit cybersecurity really heavily until Wi-Fi came out, and I had my first experience with Backtrack Linux, Aircrack, and that whole suite, breaking into my own Wi-Fi network And then from there graduated to like SSL Strip and Wireshark and everything else like that. So yeah, I come from Backtrack before the rolling distro of Kali. I was on the original Backtrack Linux. But yeah, so it's interesting because I've always told myself, and I've told a lot of other people, if I had the same, you know, upbringing of like having people in security when I was younger, I'd probably be in a different space. But my experience of like malware was AOL punters. So when your buddies on dial-up would send you a punter and kick you offline, and I never did enough research into it just because I did other things like sports and a bunch of other stuff going on. But it always interested me that somebody could basically send something to you and kick you off the internet. And then you had to listen to that annoying dial-up tone for 5 minutes to get back online. But yeah, man, so it's awesome to have you here. It's awesome that you were able to meet Marcus Carey. I actually have Tribe of Hackers Blue Team because somebody was nice enough to buy it for me on Twitter, and I was extremely grateful because with everything going on right now, they were like, hey, we're buying these books. Who wants one? I said, me. And right then and there, I was like, dude, like within seconds. So I actually got to sit down and start reading it because I'm in a heavy blue team role now. But yeah, man, it's good to have you here, and we'll talk more for sure. Chris, why don't you give us a rundown, because I'm sure not everybody knows you, although I wish they would, because
everybody knows Chris.
I met you at San CTI, and even then, man, just that your story, your background has been crazy, and what you do now and Hacker Valley and everything else like that is just amazing.
I appreciate that. Ron took his story way back, so we like to one-up each other. I was born September. I'm just kidding. No, so I'd say my story really began when I was a kid, just really interested in technology, period. I had one of those kits where you could build like a AM radio station. I remember being in the basement wrapping copper wires around the piping so I could get the AM station and turn it into an alarm system and stuff like that. And then next thing you know, I wanted to build Skynet, right? I watched Terminator 2. I was like, I'm going to build this thing, right? That didn't quite happen, but I think I chose a better route because then we'd have Terminators everywhere. But yeah, so I really got started in high school, just curiosity. I just moved schools in the middle of a semester, and I missed a cutoff, and we had this like real special program for folks to get their CCNA in high school, and I missed the cutoff. So I'm asking my friends, I'm like, hey, I want to get into this computer stuff, and they're like, oh, go buy a book. And so I ended up taking my back to school clothes money, and I spent the entire thing on one CompTIA book. And so I read the A+ book like it was a novel, just reading through all the components, the wires and all this stuff. And I really didn't get to use that knowledge until I joined the Marine Corps. Joined the Marine Corps as intelligence. And luckily, I got to use that knowledge in my field of intelligence, which was computer networks intelligence. Spent some time. I had my own company. I was at Cyber Command for about 5 years or so. And then I just started building threat intelligence capabilities all around the country. And Ron and we worked together at IronNet Cybersecurity, which is Jenner Alexander's startup. That's where we started vibing. He was the hunter. I was the threat intel guy. And did some consulting. I was at Mandiant and I was at Booz for a little bit. And then one day Netflix gives me a call and said, hey, how would you like to build and run intelligence at Netflix? And I said, sure, why not? So flew over there. Ron and we stayed together because my family, they stayed over in Atlanta because my kids, they were still in school. And so I was like, hey, man, you got a spare bedroom? He was like, yeah, I'll take you in. And that's how everything got started. We just hit the ground running, pushing each other, keeping each other accountable. And we built this thing, Hacker Valley Studio. And it's been such a surreal experience. It's been incredible because as we just did it for the fun of it. We never thought of it as like going to be this big business idea. And eventually we had someone on the show, MK Palmore, And he said, "Oh, I love working with entrepreneurs." And we're like, "Entrepreneurs? We haven't made a dime." And so we decided, like, all right, let's make this thing real. Let's see how far we can push this thing. And ever since then, it's just kind of been off to the races. It's been such a phenomenal thing. And right now, I'm a director of security engineering at a financial technology startup, and really get to the best of both worlds. We got the human component and the technology. So super happy with where I am right now.
Yeah, that's one of the big things that I've loved about Hacker Valley Studio is the human element, right? Because that was a big thing you talked about at CNCTI was the human factor. And I've played a lot of that into my cyber awareness videos lately is how to combat like these social engineering things that people are doing, whether it's the phony calls from like, hey, your iCloud account was hacked, please, talk. I've had them hang up on me twice now because I've been over the top sarcastic about, oh, really? It was? Where? No. Click. Ah. So, like, things like that, I mean, it's the human element because you look at it, how many people really are breached every day. And people, not necessarily networks, people are giving away their information. They're giving away their passwords, their bank accounts, their social security numbers, whatever the case may be. And seeing things like that, it plays a huge role in what you guys talk about, when you talk about the just trying to improve how we can be as humans to be cognizant of these things. And so I love that aspect because it's something that even though we do in cyber awareness training, it's not really talked about often enough. We sometimes look at humans or the people on the endpoints as the weakest link. And right. To an extent, you could say that's true. And some people are going to fillet me for that because they don't want to say that's true. But at the end of the day, with how security is on a lot of these companies, people aren't getting in via network exploitation or web exploitation most of the time. It's somebody clicked a phishing email that allowed the malware into the network. So we've got to find better ways to train, or we've just got to find better endpoint security that can stop it. Like those are your only two options at this point in the game.
It's a combination of both. You got to have a little bit of both.
Yeah. So, but I love having you guys on here. So I was actually listening to your 100th episode today. And I didn't get through it all because I got tied up looking at Docker training and stuff. But give people a rundown. Like Hacker Valley Studio really is something that you guys started, and honestly, I'm trying to get to your level. I really am because I love what you guys are doing. So what all do you guys discuss? Like all your guests that you've had on, and again, 100 episodes, you've had a lot of guests. What are your major talking points for people that want to kind of listen in? What are the things that you usually discuss with all these different people?
Take it away, Chris.
Yeah, so I mean, like we said, we talk about the human element because we really feel like cybersecurity practitioners are men athletes with no off season. So we look at the whole of the cybersecurity professional. Like, are you more productive? How do you maximize your performance? What are the things that are components of performance? Mentality, fitness, all these different things. And so we always look for these offshoots of focus and offshoots of performance. So like we had in the Hacker Valley Red season, we had Grandmaster Maurice Ashley, chess grandmaster, like had no idea about cybersecurity when we reached out to him, but we saw the parallels. And so we like to use these nuggets of wisdom because, I mean, to be honest, this is a super selfish thing to run a podcast because we get all the information, we get to ask all the questions, but I guess the benefit for everyone else is that we share it, because we could keep all this information to ourselves and just be awesome, right? No, I'm just joking. But we could share all this stuff with everybody and make everybody else better. High tides raise all boats is what they say. So we really focus on the whole of the human. I would say that if you listen to our podcast and you're expecting to hear about IP addresses, the latest malware, all that stuff, you're going to be disappointed. If you do want to hear about programs and how to maximize programs, you'll hear a little bit of that. but it's mostly about the individual and maximizing the performance of the individual.
I think it comes back to what a lot of experts, grandmasters, martial artists that have reached this pinnacle, and they'll describe focusing on the fundamentals. Like when you focus on the fundamentals of what makes you good, you're able to excel even further. You're able to take yourself to the next level and upgrade yourself and your skill set even faster. When Chris and I first met, I was going through this, not when we first met, but when we first started the podcast, I was going through this journey of learning how to learn. And through this process, I learned actually it's not always about the bits and the bytes. It's about the experience. It's about putting myself in the situation to where I can have the best outcome. And I think when Chris and we started the podcast, we started doing that. We started putting ourselves in the best situation to have the best possible outcome for our future. And we also started to take the expertise of these different industries. We just spoke to a martial artist commentator earlier today, and there is so many parallels between martial arts and commentating and cybersecurity. He was asking us if we knew what an OODA loop was, and we're like, what? This is crazy because this is like one of the principles of being able to observe and act on information. And he uses these same principles in commentating and sports analysis. So we're able to take all of these facets of industry expertise and use them to grow our cybersecurity knowledge and also grow the knowledge of our guests. I think that's really the best part of focusing on the human element.
Yeah, I've noticed that. And talking to some other people, like, I don't know if you guys know Alyssa Miller. She's been on my show twice now. She relates a lot of how she correlates, whether it be resumes or cybersecurity, to like being a barista and remembering orders and doing all these different things. So conceptually, I look at the same thing. And Chris is someone from, I came out of the Army, you were in the Marine Corps, I relate a lot of things, and I've tried to help other veterans. And okay, you can take what you did in the military, whether or not it was IT or cybersecurity or whatever, you can take facets of what you did and correlate it to whatever job you want on the outside, whether it's leadership or running a team or, I don't know, discipline and writing reports and NCOERs and all these different things. And you can make that work for you. You can write a resume. You can get a job doing anything you want if you know how to use the right verbiage. And so you can correlate all those things to even cybersecurity because, well, with discipline, you've got to be able to sit there in front of a computer screen and catch all these different things as they're coming across the wire. And as a barista, you got to remember all these different orders, which you got to remember a bunch of stuff in cybersecurity. And, so looking at all these different concepts and these different career fields that people come from, I think as long as they take what they learned and apply it properly, you can do any job you want, especially cybersecurity. You just got to be able to apply the right facets of your job. Now, if you were lazy at your old job, don't bring that to cybersecurity. But if you were doing well, if you learned a lot, then it's a good thing to bring. You can bring the ability to learn. And that's one of the things that we try to impress upon people that are applying to jobs, which is one of the big reasons I've done this happy hour, is to get people out there that are looking for work or trying to figure out how to find a job, is, impress your ability to learn. So even if you didn't get a college degree, even if you didn't get certifications, do you have a blog? Do you have a GitHub page? Do you have a YouTube channel? Anything that shows that you can learn the field, you can do the job. And I think that's huge. So yeah, looking back at, I didn't even know you guys had a chess grandmaster on your podcast or a martial artist, master. So that's awesome. I'm going to have to find those episodes and listen to them because I'm really curious now on what they had to say and how they correlate, all the knowledge. So that's huge. But, saying that, where do you see cybersecurity now, the human element, all these GRC programs, all these regulations? What should we do to alter, change them, or make them better so that we can improve upon the human element, so we can improve upon whether it's training or endpoint security, whatever the case may be? What do you guys see as sort of the ebb and flow to make this stuff better?
We had a guest on, and I believe it was Rachel Toback, and she brought up something that we just touched on, and is it humans, are they the weakest link? And she argues that they are actually the first line of defense. So I think it's always about training. How can we distill information from these tools and technologies? Because when we look at the order of how we look at business, it's people, processes, and technology in that order. If we're able to kind of bubble that up from top to bottom, I think we can really enable the people to understand the technology and the process. So I think when we're looking at vulnerabilities, we're looking at the weakness of an organization. If we can take the technology and convert that into a process, maybe working with open source communities or a vendor, and understand what is their process, and then take that process and then give it to the person, now everyone can kind of have this harmonious layer of defense and understanding of how to create the best environment.
Yeah, I've heard that about, I don't know if it was Rachel's I seen. It was months ago. I had seen something about not calling humans the weakest link. And one of my problems with training, with trying to improve that knowledge bit, that human element, is we rely so much on CBTs, on this computer-based training, on, saying when you're onboarding as a new employee, oh, go through all this computer training, and then you'll be able to use a computer and do all these different things. Even in the military, I got to be honest. Click, 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 click. Done. Okay, take the test. Oh, I didn't pass. Let me take it again. I passed it this time. We're good to go. And I've seen that all over. So I have always wanted to impress in-person training, right? Take the time out of your day, bring someone in, or bring one of your IT or security guys in to truly train your employees on what to look for. Because we could say, don't open an email that has hyperlinks. Don't download images. Don't download files. You can say that till you're blue in the face, but half the time they're just clicking through the training anyways and don't even care. So if you bring someone in person, a lot of times you'll get more interaction and people will actually ask questions. So I've been a big proponent of, let's bring in-person training to companies. Now, I get the ROI of it, like the expense. Oh, we're going to take time out of our employees' day to do this. You're taking the time out anyways when they got to do computer-based training. Why not have someone come in and do it? And then if they're too shy to ask IT, they can ask this guy they don't even know.
Right.
I got to give a big ups to Chris, because he gave me this interesting opportunity to where, now we're working together at the same company, and my job is security experience. So almost like using a building. If your users are using a building, they shouldn't have to interact with the fire sprinkler. They shouldn't have to interact with the carbon dioxide detector. They shouldn't have to interact with all these devices that's going to help them, live within this building or interact with this building. I think maybe, and this is just a maybe, I think maybe we can get security to a similar state of interacting with a building. If you go into a bank, in most situations, you should be able to go into this bank, interact with the ATM, and get out the crown jewels in a safe and secure manner. I think that we need to start looking at cybersecurity in that same way. How can we interact with these technologies and processes to get the information that we want out without compromising the crown jewels, which is also ultimately data and money?
Yeah, he nails it, because I don't know if you guys ever watched The Office, but there's a part in The Office where Dwight, he does something crazy in the office, and he's got to get everyone's signature, basically saying that, okay, we basically forgive you and all that stuff. And there's one last person that's like, no, I'm not giving you my signature. So he tries all these different ways of trying to get this signature, and he ends up faking like a flower delivery or something like that. Like, hey, please sign here. And he like pulls the clipboard, and he's like, finally got it. Right? He got finally got the signature. But what that tells you is that when someone is relentless, especially when it's an adversary, they're going to do everything they can to get one of your users to click that link. and it's only a matter of time before they do. And so when Ron is talking about architecting security in a way that the user doesn't necessarily have to be always the vigilant one, even though people should be vigilant. But when you build security in such a way where people can just feel safe and just operate, I think that's where you really hit the mark.
Yeah, that's huge, and I think we're getting close. I don't think we're ever going to be 100. Actually, I know we're never going to be 100% there. Nothing is impenetrable, as much as people want to say it is. And I have seen tweets and I've seen LinkedIn messages of, oh, my operating system is 100% unhackable. No, it's not. Unless it's disconnected 6 feet underground in a concrete block. No, it's not. But I think with things like your different EDR solutions and MDR and all this stuff, I think we're getting close. I think part of the problem comes back to some of these executives buy the new blinky flashy lights, but don't have the team to support it.
Right.
So even though they may get CrowdStrike or Cylance or Carbon Black or whatever it is that they put on these systems, they don't have the team to put the right policies in place to truly enforce what's going on. So we know eventually, even us as security professionals sometimes fall for a phishing email. It happens. Nobody is perfect. So you need to have those systems in place. And a lot of companies are like, oh yeah, I want that because it's AI and it's ML and it's, BA and everything else and cool. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to install it and have no policies because I don't have the team to implement policies.
Yeah.
So it does nothing. It's worse than just a pure signature-based anti-malware solution. It legitimately does nothing because we don't have any policies to enforce. So I think that's another huge problem. Looking at trying to combat the human element, include security in these endpoint solutions and network solutions. And that's going to be a big factor, especially now with everybody being remote. Are you on a desktop that you own or a laptop you own, or are you on a corporate asset?
Mm-hmm.
If you're on a corporate asset, it should have some type of cloud EDR or MDR solution that reaches back and gets its policies from somewhere. And if it's a personal machine, why?
Yeah, I almost clicked a phishing email like one time. This was back when I was working at Capitol Hill, and one of my biggest heroes ever is Barack Obama. Like one day we're going to get him on the podcast, and that's going to be a crazy day. But one day, received the email. It was like, "Hey, we're looking for some folks on Capitol Hill to have lunch with Barack Obama. You just submit your email, click this link, and then you'll be put into a raffle and see if you actually get it." I was like this close. I was like, wait a minute. It was a little too good to be true. And come to find out, it wasn't even like a malicious phish. It was like a test. So I would have clicked it. I would have just had to do some media training or something like that. But that tells you, like, I've been doing this for a long time. Even though I almost like, I got to hurry up and do it. It's my opportunity. So those are the, different ways that adversaries are looking. Like they either want to scare you into doing something, they want to excite you into making a mistake. And so that's one thing that you have to think about from a user's perspective. There's always going to be a way to get somebody.
What's also interesting is you talk about the MDR solutions and EDR and all this. And it's almost like nowadays we're going to the Lego store and we're immediately picking out this Millennial Falcon piece, this Lego setup, and you have to do so much of the configuration yourself. You got to put the pieces together. It has to be just right. It's going to take hours. It's going to take expertise. It's going to take maybe even a team of people doing it. And I think that's what we forget about when we hear about like the latest and greatest solutions. Like it's so exciting. It sounds great. Like it's going to solve all of our problems, and maybe it can, but you need to really understand and have the time to put together that artifact.
that's a big thing because with small businesses, they only have so many options, right? They only have so much funding coming in. But when you see some of these major corporations getting breached, and I'm talking massive ransomware across the entire network, and you're like, how did you let that happen? You have more revenue, more money coming in than probably the entire country will ever earn in their entire life, and you let this happen. And again, it's one thing if it's just a small subnet, right? Like it's just a small piece of their network, maybe HR or whatever. But we're talking entire sites, entire networks going down over a breach. And I look at it and I'm just like, if you're using the right solutions and have the right personnel, you should be fine. I mean, yeah, little things are going to happen. You're going to get breached. There's going to be data stolen, but not at the scale that we've seen. And I equate it to, and people, again, I don't care. It's my channel. I'm going to say it anyways. I equate it to companies using the good old boy system to bring their buddy in as a CISO or as their CIO, because guess what? I know him. He did work at here. That's like bringing in the Equifax CISO to be your CISO. He let them get breached for how many people, and you're going to bring him in to be your CISO? Like, what are you thinking? If he didn't do the right thing there, what makes you think he's going to do the right thing for you? And you see that a lot. Oh, you were a CISO before? Cool. Come over here and be ours because we're going to pay you more money. So let you get breached also? Like, I don't understand that concept. And you see it so much with people moving job to job. When are we going to find that, hey, let's bring the security guy up to be our CISO? Yeah, he has to learn the business side of things and understand business enablement, but at least he'll know security and implement security. When are we going to consider security primary or at least secondary, not tertiary or even further on the back burner?
I don't know. You have to think, though, that the CISO that's been through a crazy breach like that, I would think they went to the school of hard knocks to protect an organization. I might want to hire them because they just went through some stuff. And they're like, that's never going to happen again. But I think what you're getting to is, when are we going to start looking at the folks that know what it takes to protect our organization? And I think that's really important. I think we're in like this growth stage where there are a lot of CISOs that are really, really accomplished. They've been in the trenches with everyone else, but there's still some other folks that kind of transition from maybe some other type of role within a company, and they became the CISO. But you look at all of the different companies around the world, there's such a huge delta between the folks that don't know what's going on and the folks that have it together. But I think that delta is going to eventually close with all the innovations that come out with technology, folks that are doing outreach, the stuff that Ron and I do on a daily basis. We're trying to bring everybody up because, like in the Marine Corps, one team, one fight. Everybody in cybersecurity should be working together. So we want to bring everybody up. We don't want to point and laugh at the guy that, oh, you got breached. Say, hey, what happened? How can we fix this? This is how I would fix this in the future. So really, like, taking it from that perspective, I think everybody would be better off.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. One of my big things, and one of the things I've always said, you got people like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple. So you've got so many bright minds out there that do really good work, but we're isolated in companies. So even if you try to bring them together, there's still NDAs and non-competes and everything else in the way of being able to do what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish in security. And then you have elitism, and you have, imposter syndrome, and you have gatekeeping, and you have all these other things. And, it's really hard because you've got people that'll sit there and be like, oh, if you don't have a bug bounty, then you're not worth anything. Or if you don't have a CVE to your name, then you're not worth anything. Or if you don't have an OSCE or an OSCP, then you're not worth anything. Or, and the list goes on. And I'm like, you realize I was talking to a 17-year-old that scolded me on reverse engineering. Like, I had just got done doing Grem, and this kid scolded me, and I was like, all right, cool, dude. Let's go at it. And like, I'm willing to learn from these people, but you look at some of these people out there, and they're not willing to learn. They're like, oh, you don't have this, so we don't want to talk to you. You're not important. And you're like, why not come together? Why not help each other grow? And that's what I like about what you're saying, Chris, and what you and Ron are doing is trying to lift people up and bring them to that next level, because that's what we have to do as a community. That's truly what we need to do, is lift all of us up, because no one's an expert. We all have something new to learn every day. And I think that's huge.
I think we will see kind of what you're describing, the security practitioner start to evolve into the CISO for organizations. I think that right now the technology is just evolving so quickly to where the practitioner almost kind of feels this responsibility to be the practitioner. When I became a manager at Palo Alto Networks, I had an opportunity to promote within my team. I was like, hey, I've kind of elevated to being a manager, and I want to find my peer within my team. And everyone kind of had this purpose. They had this mission within them where they kind of weren't done executing on it. They're like, hey, I still have more to give back to the game. There's more that I got to give back to the community, more that I got to give back to my customers and organizations, to where I don't necessarily want to be a manager, or I don't see the impact that I can make as a manager or a director. They don't necessarily see it at that point. So I think it's an evolution of the game. At first, like you were saying, we started with help desk, and we elevated to articulate enough to the industry there needs to be a cybersecurity practice. And then now we're articulating to the industry that, hey, there needs to be directors and executives that understand the game, that understand the adversary, that understand the technology. So I think it's an evolution, and it's a new game, and we're slowly working our way there. Maybe it's a little slower than what it should be, but I think it's just a matter of time until we see it. And I think, Chris, you even made predictions that threat intelligence analysts will ultimately become like the future of the CISO.
100%. Just wait and see. Promise you.
So you think what, the intelligence analysts will become what?
The CISOs and leaders of security programs.
I'm all for that. But there's a reason behind it. The reason I'm all for that is because they can speak the language, but know the adversary. And they also know they have the way an intelligence analyst mind works. They have the innate ability to also learn the business and understand business enablement. And that's one of the things us as security practitioners sometimes forget, is that business enablement. You can't say shut down this port or don't use this software. Sometimes you have to be like, all right, we can use it. We just have to make sure we do this, this, and this to allow us to mitigate any potential risk. And sometimes you're not going to get all the risk mitigated, so you need to put things in place to be able to watch for it. So yeah, for sure, the intelligence analyst definitely has something that they can bring to the table that I think us as practitioners sometimes forget. And you can't have one without the other, because the intelligence analyst knows the APTs, they know the threats, they know the MITRE framework, they know, all the different ways these people are going to attack and do things. Whereas the threat hunters will go to their analysts and be like, hey, so I'm seeing this. Do you happen to know what's going on? But just as much as security has to reach to their analysts, the intel analysts, they have to be able to talk to IT. And I think we eventually need to come to this community of, like you said, one team, one fight. IT, cybersecurity, your analysts, your CISO, your directors, we all need to be one team to come together and be like, all right, how do we mitigate this? How do we lessen the risk? Is it even possible? Yeah. Is it worth, going back to the executives and saying, look, we just can't do it. There's no way. If we put this in play, we're screwed. There's nothing we can do about it. Or can we go back to the executive and be like, all right, we can do it, but it's going to take 50 man hours to properly mitigate any potential vulnerabilities. And even then, we still need to have our analysts, our security analysts, watch this, this port and for these keywords or whatever the case may be. So I think we need to come together more as a team across the board, because that's a lot of things we're lacking. Security blames IT blames security, HR blames security, accounting blames security. Sometimes they blame IT, and then we blame DNS. So
Yeah.
so it's one of those things we do. We have to really start coming together as one team. And I'm with you on that. I would love to see Intel analysts as CISOs. I really would. I think it would bring a whole different element, and I think it would bring a lot more to the table rather than just, oh, well, we can't do that. No, because an analyst knows how to explain and how to articulate the yes or no. I'm not gonna lie, a lot of security practitioners don't have soft skills. They don't know how to articulate why it's one way or the other.
That's true. Why do you think that is?
Me? Because we're techies. Yeah. We look. I tell my son all the time. I got 5 boys. My oldest loves
5 boys.
I got 5 boys.
Wow.
My oldest loves designing games. He loves computers. But he told me when he was like 8 years old, I want to be a hacker. I started teaching him Python, and he didn't want to do it no more. But I've told him, like, he's a lot like me. I find solace behind a computer screen. Not because I'm a troll or anything like that, but because people are mean. People are vicious. People are vindictive, and people stab you in the back. Whereas behind a computer, you can find those people that will always have your back. If you don't like someone, you can block them. You don't have to see them every day in school. You don't have to see them every day at work. You can just be like, I don't want to deal with you no more. So you're gone, muted. I don't have to hear from you.
Yep. Whereas
in real life, we have to deal with the idiots that are in real life. Like, there's no way around it. So, we don't have that ability to communicate. We lose it because we're not interacting in real life. Now, I'm a little different because I was a jock too. I was a computer geek, a jock, and a nerd, and everything else. And so I'm a little different. I can kind of flip the switch and talk business or talk to my peers or talk to friends or family. But a lot of people get stuck behind a computer screen their entire life and don't know how to change that and flip that switch. And I think that's a big problem.
Yeah, I think there's so much more gray area than people let on. People get tied to these labels and they feel like they have to be one way or the other and everything that comes along with it. But people are in such a gray area. So like for me, I'm biracial, right? So I take components from both cultures of my family. And that's just who I am. I don't have to feel like I have to be one way or the other. I'm just me. I'm just who I am. And so people should feel okay with being able to just be themselves. And if you're a jock, you're a jock. Like I fought my entire life. I was a wrestler all the way up through high school. Then I, went to the Marine Corps, did Marine Corps martial arts, did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, MMA, Muay Thai. And that's who I've been, but I'm also a techie. And so I feel like I don't have, I am going to disown my jock side because I'm a techie. That's not the case. There's so much more gray area, I think, especially within cybersecurity. And I think that's why we love doing our podcast, is because we get to dive into all these other passions that these cybersecurity practitioners have.
For sure, for sure. Because, that was one of the things. When I was in high school, I grew up playing football and I loved computers. I fixed my first computer when I was 7 years old, and I've always loved computers. But when I got to high school, I played football. They played favorites. I quit playing football. I wrestled. I lost every match. I didn't wrestle anymore because when you learn that you're going against kids that have been wrestling since they were 2 years old, you kind of feel outmatched. And you're like, you know what? It's for somebody else. But computers I had
Right.
been working on for so long, I knew them. I knew how they operated. And no, I wasn't the hacker in the traditional sense of, oh, I'm going to take apart this radio or I'm going to take apart whatever. For me, it was more, I know how these things work. I was the only one in my high school that had a Microsoft Office Master certification for Office 2000. I got certified in all of them. Why? Because I was in a business class and a business program and was like, I can do it. Office is easy. All right, pass another one. Pass another one. Every year I pass a new test. So, I knew the programming side or the software side of things and wanted to learn more. And I did. I dealt with people. I had friends, but I always felt like my place was behind a computer screen. I was good at it.
Right.
It was what I was good at doing. And so I think some people just need to be able to kind of get out of their comfort zone. Because even me, I still like partying. I still like, having people over, having some drinks, playing some beer pong or whatever the case may be. But during the day, I find my peace behind a computer screen. So when people are like, oh, I do X, Y, and Z or after work or I watch TV. Yeah, I watch TV with my family. But at the end of the day, I love being behind a computer every day. Like, I don't get mad. If I have to work from 5 in the morning till, 10 o'clock at night, it doesn't bother me. Yeah, it sucks being away from family and I want to spend more time with my family, but it's not like I'm doing something that I hate. I love what I do. And I think that's what a lot of people miss out on is loving what they do.
That's super important because when you talk about burnout, you get to burnout whenever your passions and your interests aren't in alignment with the tasks that you do on a day-to-day basis. I have a mentor that told me, when you really understand what you want to do, think about getting that phone call at the end of the day. You've had a hard day, you've been run through the ringer, but you see this phone call and you pick it up and someone is bringing up whatever topic it is. If you feel like you're energized by that conversation, that is what you're supposed to be doing. So for me, I get energized about maximizing my team, hiring. I love to hire people. I love maximizing their performance, getting stuff out of their way so they could do their best work. So that's one thing that people should think about is, like, at the end of the day, if you're dead dog tired and someone gave you a phone call, what is that topic that they're bringing up that you are A-okay with having that conversation, even if you're exhausted?
Yeah, for sure. Ron, what you got, man?
I think that there's a lot to unpack there. And for me, I'm about energy management. I think that there is nothing more important than managing my energy because that is going to be the runway for my career. So like I try to never get burnt out. Like Chris, I remember something he told me a long time ago that I thought was pretty crazy, but you have to do it to a certain point, and it's sometimes things are going to be on fire. And I think we see this as people in security. So, like the whole house might be on fire, but you have to understand how to let things burn and kind of resolve the things that are most important. So like for me, in order for my house to not catch on fire, I need to wake up early. I need to meditate. So that's like the hands down the number one thing that I can do to like have enough energy to go all day. So if I don't meditate, then it's like, all right, dang, I'm now gonna be suffering because of something that I chose not to do. So like I try to like just set up my environment and my experience so I'm always thriving. Like when I first wake up, I meditate, I do yoga. When 3 o'clock rolls around, I do my best to not take any meetings or get caught up with anything. I try to meditate. So I think like it is really important to be in a situation, an environment where you get more energy, where you don't get depleted. But I think in any case, you have to really manage that energy. So like for me, I always journal. I'm like, all right, today's energy, man. I can even pull up my journal now. It's like, what does my perfect morning look like, and what is my perfect night? And as long as I'm like striving to hit those two, then whatever challenge that comes up, it's no problem. I'm like, I'm calm, I'm cool. There's nothing that can phase me as long as I'm hitting that perfect day. I think even when I'm looking at cybersecurity, like this is the industry that I love. Like I'm going to be in cybersecurity until who knows, until I retire in some way, in one way or another. And even if it wasn't cybersecurity, like the way that I'm managing my energy now, I can go into banking, I can go into taxes, I can go into martial arts, probably get my butt kicked, but I could do all these things because now I really understand like this energy management concept.
Yeah, for sure. And that's, somebody asked me the one day, they said, what's your schedule like? What, you talk about waking up early, you talk about doing these different things. What's your schedule like? And up until I had a lot of problems with my shoulder, which I had surgery on September 24th finally, so I'm still recovering from that. I had started waking up and doing yoga in the morning. And I was doing DDP yoga because it's meant for those that are active and meant for, people recovering from injuries. And coming out of the Army, it was something I needed. My back is jacked up, my neck's jacked up, both shoulders. So it was something that I started doing, and then my left shoulder got even worse, and I finally had it fixed. But like, once I get to that point where I can start doing it again, I'll wake up at 5:30, do yoga, take my kids to school or whatever I need to do with my kids for the day, and then work. And then, I get done, I don't know, sometime after 5:30, 6 o'clock. And then I concentrate on Cyber Warrior Studios. I do this. I, have all my different playlists, which I apologize in advance for not getting out the videos I wanted to get out this week, but, we'll get there. This one was more important to me, so I wanted to make sure I had the energy for this. But, I do all these things, and now I've got my wife on board, and she's doing things like my hoodies, and, we're trying to do a GoFundMe for all this stuff. But at the end of the day, it's all about your schedule. And if you get in that habit of waking up early, you have more time in your day. You can do more by waking up early. And the earlier you wake up, the more you get accomplished. Because let's be honest, by 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, you don't want to do nothing. You want to sit around, watch TV or relax or play a game or whatever it is you do. You don't want to be working. So if you wake up early, get started earlier, do your workouts, do whatever you need to do, then you accomplish a lot more in your day. And for me, that's a lot of energy for me because, I love cybersecurity. I'm going to be in it forever. Whether it's doing this or, working full time like I'm doing or whatever the case may be, I'm not leaving it. I love all aspects of it. Some people love blue, some people love red, some people love orange, green, yellow, blue, whatever. If it says cybersecurity, I want to learn it, and that's how I am. Nice. And so, I think that's a big thing is your energy. And honestly, Ronald, if you can send me some things for meditating and how to do it, game on. I'll give it a shot because I've got no problem with that.
Did you watch the resurrection of Jake the Snake?
No, I should have, and I didn't watch it yet.
If you do DDP yoga, you need to watch that movie.
I saw Mick Foley show up on Raw after doing DDP yoga, and it looked like that man lost like 500 pounds. I was like, I don't really need to lose weight, but if I could get on his level, I'll be all right.
Right. Yeah. And no, check it out. Because, it's all about a man fighting his demons and using yoga and accountability to completely right the ship. And I'll tell everybody right now, all your listeners and stuff like that, I teared up at the end of that because like you felt like you struggled with this man throughout the entire special. So if you like DDP yoga, definitely check out that movie. It'll change it. It's a good one.
Yeah, for sure. And again, it comes down to energy, man. Like Ron, you hit the nail on the head, man. Energy's huge. Because in cybersecurity, we have these fires. I can't tell you when I was working as a security engineer how many times I'd look at my phone at like 11 o'clock at night going, oh, Christ. Pick up the phone, call somebody like, hey, what's going on? Do I need to jump on my computer? Like, because I was a sim engineer. And if so, we saw something we had to go through. And as a senior engineer, we were also a senior analyst, essentially, and a threat hunter who had to go and figure out what happened along with our other analysts. So we'd get involved in a lot of the ransomware breaches and things like that. So, that energy is key. If you love what you do, then those calls don't bother you. You're like, all right, cool, let's jump on it, let's get it done. And I'll get to sleep after. Or, I'll make up that time. They'll either give me time off or whatever. But you're happy to go do it because you have that energy, you have that love of the field. And I don't know, man. I had a conversation 2 security happy hours ago where we talk about chasing money. And some people are like, oh, if you're chasing money, then someone said it's okay. And I'm like, if you're chasing money, you're not going to be happy getting that call at 11 o'clock at night. I'm just saying.
There's an interesting kind of story that I heard a while back, and I think it hasn't changed me, but it made me think a little differently about money and my passions. There's these 2 kids. They're playing baseball at the park, and these 2 kids are hitting homers. They're hitting the balls out of the park. And this older gentleman sees them playing the game, and he says, "Hey, you guys are pretty good. I will give you guys $2 a day to play." And they're like, "What? We're like 10 years old. Sure, we'll take the $2 and we'll practice even harder." And then the guy sees them getting even better. He's like, "I will give you $10 to keep playing. You guys are gonna go pro." And the kids get more excited, and they love it, and they reach a point to where they're now playing the game much longer than they used to play, and they're getting upset that their skills aren't getting better. And then the man comes to them and says, "Hey, I'll give you guys $30 a game to play." And they say, "We want 40," because they start to understand that their skills are valuable and rare. They can hit these homers out of the park. And the old man says, "Actually, you know what? On second thought, I'm not going to pay you guys at all." And ultimately, the kids stop playing. So I think there's this push and pull relationship that people should have with their passion and money. I think if cybersecurity is your passion, it's very dangerous to do it professionally, because now the fact that you get better and better and better and go up this roller coaster, and I think Chris calls it Icarus balloon. The fact that you grow it and you nurture it, and then if someone decides to stop paying for it, you stop doing it. So I think even though the passion is great, there's a balancing act to how much money you should ever accept for doing something in general.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And I think right now it's our field, right? We have the call of what we want to make. Let's be honest, we really do. If we don't want to work for one company, we can sit there and go to another and say, "Hey, I'll take X amount of dollars more." And it's okay. But yes, you're going to have that tipping point where finally companies going to be like, "No, I ain't going to pay you." And then you're going to have the company you work for go, "You were looking somewhere else, so you're gone." Because social networking's out there. They could see what you're doing. If you put on LinkedIn these days that you're open for work, they can see that. Everybody's on social networking now. I think that is the worst freaking banner somebody could do, but I digress.
It's genius.
It's great if you don't have a job, but if you're currently employed and you put that on your profile, you're an idiot. But yeah, I think there's this tipping point. It's like a seesaw, and right now we're winning.
Yep.
But it's going to come to a point where we're no longer we're equal, and then eventually the companies are going to be winning. So you got to make sure you're happy with where you're at. And I think that's where a lot of your culture and things like that come into play, where if you're not happy doing the job you're doing and working for who you're working for, be happy with what you're doing. So move for happiness, move for the enjoyment of the job. Don't move for money. Because if you move for money, eventually someone's not going to pay you as much, and you're not going to take that job that may actually be better.
Right. One of the things that I think that we should definitely talk about, at least for a few minutes, is I think it's unfortunate, especially for people like Chris and I that didn't necessarily have a ton of mentors in general growing up. Maybe it was the same for you, because it sounds like you kind of went to the school of hard knocks yourself. But money in general, if you are doing a job that is rare and valuable, I feel as though a lot of people aren't asking for the right things. They're kind of just letting the opportunity present itself and saying yes. What kind of strategies do you have for getting what you actually deserve for that job? Because your job might be stressful in its own way. You got to wake up at 11. What kind of negotiation tactics do you have?
So for me, it was a little different because coming out of the Army, I took the first job that said yes. I have a family, I have kids. I couldn't afford to be unemployed. From there, except for the job I have now, I've never taken a job for less money. Until now, I had never taken a job for less money than what I was making. And a lot of times, once you get into this field, if you're doing the right things and making the right connections, once you get that first or second job, you don't have to apply anymore. People reach out to you. Chris knows that. They'll reach out to you and they'll be like, hey, we want to hire you. You'll say, fine, I'm worth this much money. If they ain't going to pay it, guess what? You're not hiring me. And so, but you got to find that balance, because if you don't have the experience, say you haven't been in the field more than a year or two. Now, if you've been doing a lot of things on your free time or off time, then cool, you can fight for that $150,000, $200,000. You can put up that fight and say, hey, I have bug bounties, I have CVEs, I have all this other stuff. But if all you're doing is going from one job to another, then it becomes rough, because yeah, you can ask for more money and you're more than likely you're gonna get it because now you have a few years under your belt, but you're not gonna get what you think. The only reason I left my one security engineering job, besides getting into a pen testing role, was because the guy offered me 35 grand more a year. And I was like, okay, I'll take it. Why not? But, you know, that was one of those things where I enjoyed what I was doing. I loved what I was doing. I loved the company I worked for. Got offered more money. Got offered to be a pen tester instead of blue team. And I was like, all right, cool, I'll do it. But you have to find that you got to be willing to ask for more. So if you have any experience, whether it's GitHub, YouTube, blogs, anything to prove who you are, I would not accept anything less than like 90 grand a year in the States. I really wouldn't. There's no reason for it. And if you have a CISSP, I definitely wouldn't accept more than like 110. Because at that rate, you should be at least a tier 2 analyst or engineer or something. 110 is perfectly reasonable for somebody with that amount of experience. So if you're not asking for that, know your value, know your worth. You have the experience. You should be making 6 figures if you have a SSP, if you have an OSCP, any of these things, because honestly, you have to have been doing the job for so long, whether on your own or not, to get to this level.
Yeah.
Well, you know, one thing that I learned. Oh, go ahead.
I know. You go ahead. I was gonna say something else.
All right, I got something I got a relic that I'm gonna share that I don't typically share. That is also very interesting. I want y'all's opinion on it. But if you accept a job for a rate, doesn't that mean that you've undersold yourself? Because if you've said, hey, I want to make this much, and someone says, okay, doesn't that now mean that you are now selling your goods and services for less than what you could have gotten? Like, a lot of the times there is the notion of a counteroffer, and people will go through one counteroffer. And we know from kids buying candy from the Candyman High School, we all know that Candyman in high school.
I was the Candyman.
He had rates. And if you were willing to spend time with the Candyman, you can get the candy for substantially cheaper. And I think that as cybersecurity professionals, and this goes back to the business sense question, as cybersecurity professionals, we don't necessarily spend enough time with business and negotiation. And we hear like 6 figures, like, okay, great, I'll ask for 110. And then the company says, yep, I'll give you 110. It's like, is that a good thing that they said yes? My kind of impression now that I've read the books that I've read is if you get a yes from your first counter, that is a bad thing because you haven't even had the spirit of negotiation.
What you got, Chris?
I think it depends. I think it depends. So I've been in some unique scenarios where that first offer is just blinding, and you dare not ask for more after that. So I would say I'm in a unique scenario, but I would say that when you get that job offer, I mean, really, before you even get that offer, really think about what you need to live, but then also what would it take for you to absolutely say, I'm going to leave this job and go to this job. And it's not even just necessarily about salary, but about the team you're working with, about your benefits, time at home, because some situations you make, $600,000, but you're not going home for nothing. You're working 80 hours a week. Is that a glow up, or is that a I'll pass, right? So really think about how much you need to make and what would make it appealing for you to make that jump. And then you can negotiate from there. I tend to not like want to nickel and dime, because if I'm going to come back and negotiate an extra $5,000, like, was it really worth it at that point? Especially when you're up in the upper echelons of making money anyways. But if you're getting shortchanged, I think you'll feel it, especially if you've been in the game for a little bit. But sure, there's always negotiations that happen, but it really depends on the scenario.
Yeah, so I'm a little different in that I've never actually negotiated. And
Yeah.
the reason for that has always been, all right, so the first job I took was because I needed a job. Let's be honest. I wasn't going to fight the fight. I wasn't going to risk being turned down. I was just like, all right, cool, I'll take it. It was a crap pay for what I had, but wife, 5 kids, didn't really have a choice, needed a job. The second one, because it was a significant amount more money than what I was making, why was I going to argue that? Like, it was like 30 grand more than what I was making. So it's like, cool. Stay with them over a year. And after my year, I got paid even more. And I was like, all right, bet. And then I took another job where I was making even more money. And again, these are first offers. So I was like, I'm not going to say no to something that's paying me an X amount of dollars more money. This is the first job I took for less money. And there's reasons behind that. But ultimately, I like the company I'm working for now. I enjoy the job. I enjoy the people. I enjoy the small team atmosphere. I enjoy the camaraderie and everything else. But it's also the first company I work for that wasn't ran by military. Which is crazy, because every other job I've had, with the exception of my first one, my boss, my supervisor, like his boss, and everybody else had been prior military. This is the first one I've had where I think I'm the only military member there, but it's run like the military. There's documentation. There's all this other stuff. So yeah, I'm extremely happy where I'm at. And it's just one of those things, though, where you look at, and is it worth arguing? Nah. I knew the people. I know the owners. I met them before. Or at least I met one of them in person and the other one through video chat. So I look at it as they're doing the best for me, as best as they can for right now. And so you have to kind of take into account, are they a small business and a small firm, or are they a large company that could really truly afford to pay you more? And I think we lose sight of that. We lose sight of who we're working for. And I think that becomes a problem, because you're going to ask for more money from a small business. Like, let's be honest. Let's be honest with ourselves. Can a 2-man shop really afford $200,000 a year? Like, let's be real.
On how much you have the funding. It depends. And I think this is what I say to anyone that is interested in the negotiation spirit, is if you get a yes, then you have not gone high enough. If you don't get a no, then there's still room to negotiate. And negotiation doesn't have to be
So
a
you're gonna
hostile.
push until you get a no.
Well, in the
Negotiation
big,
doesn't have to be hostile. In negotiation, everybody should win.
exactly. And the big kicker for me, and what you said, is if you put out an offer and they say yes right away, then you undersold yourself. They would have paid you more money. If you put out an offer and they say, well, we'll give you this much, then bring your offer down a little bit and you can counter. And you can be like, all right, how about we do this much instead? And that'll get you to that happy medium where everybody wins. Because unless you're working with a recruiter that is actually working for you, not all of them do. They say they do, but not all of them do. But if you're working for a recruiter that is actually working for you, they will tell you the high and the low. They'll tell you, hey, they're only going to pay this amount of money. Like, that's their max. So you can come in at their max and you can be like, hey, I want to make 120 a year. Now they're going to look at your experience, they're going to look at everything else and be like, you're worth 90. All right, give me 110. How about 100? All right, we'll go with that one. Like, that's how you do. But if you're not working with a recruiter, you don't know the low point and the high point of what they're trying to pay. So you got to kind of find out the company and see how big they are. And if they come out like 90, then be like, let's say 110 or 105. And when they go 95, you go, let's do 97. Like you kind of play the game, but it's rough because you got to be cognizant of the fact that it's going to get to a point where they're just going to pull the offer and say, we're not going to hire you. Like,
I think that's how it is in some situations, but as we're in this evolving industry and as there's more demand, we don't necessarily know what our worth is because the worth is growing every single day.
Yeah.
So right when you throw out a number, that is what recruiters and organizations are going to work with. And I think, since there's this evolving ceiling of cybersecurity, like 10 years ago, there's no way that anyone would have made 110, especially with few years of experience. But today, it's actually very feasible. You could go to a lot of companies and say, I want 110. And they'll say, okay, maybe not. And the fact that we're able to have these conversations now, I think, should encourage people to be in a negotiation spirit of not saying a number, saying no, and saying, like, instead of I want X, ask more questions. Like, how can I accept an offer that is 90,000? And then they're going to be like, good question. Let me go back and see why this person should accept an offer that's worth 90,000. And I would say let the organization present to you why they think you're worth the 90,000. Because they might go back to the hiring manager and the hiring manager's like, I told you that was a low ball number. Give them 110. He's worth 110. And then they come back with the reasons why you're worth the extra amount of money, and everyone's going to feel really good about it. So I think, like, if you throw the numbers out and you get a yes, it's a problem. So I think, like, getting the no, or at least getting the answer as to why there's no budge on movement, is going to be a lot more insightful than just going and kind of playing hardball and trying.
And I think
to,
that's where you come down to counter offers, right? So one of the big things would be, well, what is when you talk to those initial recruiters, like, even if it's from the company itself, say some company reaches out to you, like their recruiter or whatever for IT or security, and they're like, hey, we think you're a perfect fit for this job. Cool, what's your salary? What's your range?
Right.
Because you're going to come in, and you better come in regardless at the high point. Come in at what they say their high point is, if not $5,000 over. Because then when they come back to you and say, well, we'll give you this amount of money, then you can say, well, why? Why are you coming down so low? Mm-hmm. And again, I've never had to necessarily negotiate. I've taken the first offer every time just because of the reasons I gave. But that doesn't mean you can't. That just means I'm different in the effect of sometimes I had circumstances that didn't allow me to, or that I didn't really need to. So But for those that have that ability to negotiate, come in high. Come in at the highest point, if not $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 over, and see what they give you. Because when they ask you, when they bring you that offer, you could say, why are you so low? And they may say because of your experience or because of your lack of paperwork, backing you, at which point you can say, but if you look here, 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 and here, you can see that I have that all. Like, I have the experience. Have you not looked at my blog posts? Have you not watched my YouTube channel? Have you not looked at my GitHub? Whatever the case may be for whatever job you're applying for. And if they say, oh, well, no. Well, then why are you hiring me? Like, is that a company you really want to work for if they're not willing to do their own research on you and what you've done, regardless of what you've told them?
Very interesting. Very interesting stuff.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, man. This is great. It's a cool, laid-back podcast, happy hour, everything all
For
about.
sure, man. I love having you guys on. Look, hey.
I did finish my drink.
I don't know if you saw, but I got a mini fridge behind me that I've been grabbing from. But look, for real though, hey, both of you, I want y'all to look for Davin Jackson, Alpha Cybersecurity. I've had him on my show before. Dude is awesome. He says what's up, by the way, in the chat. But take a look at him. Give him a shout out. He's been trying to get on your radar, apparently, according to what he says. So feel free to reach out. Again, Alpha Cybersecurity. He has his own YouTube channel. Another one I want you guys to take a look at if you get around to it is Tyrone Wilson and Cover 6 Solutions. He's doing a lot of big things in DC. And being that you guys know that area and know where it's from, he's someone to take a look at as well. As always, I have merchandise. My wife is making it now, so if you want to hit up my GoFundMe,
I gotta get it. I gotta get a sweatshirt. I like sweatshirts.
Yo, look, we got hoodie. Wait, wrong arm. We got hoodies, Cyber Warrior Studios.
Oh, nice.
I like
my
it.
wife makes it all. It's on cyberwarriorstudios.com. GoFundMe would be great so we could bulk order some things. It's getting a little rough because we got to order it as people order. So my wife got a little mad because from the time I put it up, I've gotten 5 orders already. She's like, babe, we don't have this. I'm like, I know. I didn't plan on it taking off. But we're trying to do a lot of good things. So I do have a GoFundMe out there. I have Patreon. I have merchandise. I have everything else. But I loved having you guys on. Chris, a pleasure seeing you again. And
Absolutely.
If you become a patron, you get to see my wife shave my beard.
Oh, that's a good deal.
The day after Halloween, it's happening, and you're going to see a grown man cry. But it's been amazing. Look, hey, anybody who's watching, anybody who hasn't watched, do me a favor. Chris Cochran, Ronald Eddings, either in chat or email me any way that people can get a hold of you. That way I can throw it in the description and they can find it down below. And then check out Hacker Valley Studios. I believe it's hackervalley.studio online.
It's you could reach it by hackervalley.studio, but we got the domain hackervalley.com. You could ping us there.
Cool.
The Hacker Valley on Twitter, and of course we're always on LinkedIn, so ping us there too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna put all that in the description. Again, Ron or Chris, email me all of your contact info so I could throw that in the description. Whatever you're willing to share. If you're like me, you share everything because you're like, whatever. People know me anyway, so who cares? And we'll get that for everybody who's watching. Beyond that, this has been Security Happy Hour for a Thirsty Thursday. I am Cyber Warrior, Ronald Eddings, Chris Cochran. Go ahead, check us out. Check out the Hacker Valley Studio, and I will catch you all next time.